Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is going to be the penultimate video in the top 50 games of all time as of 2020 series. I guess I'll throw links down below for those, or also my top 10 with my wife, her top 10, Rena's top 10 games as well. I'll throw links down below, and then the next one, the final top 10, will be going up next week. And this week we are doing 20 through 19, which is going to start off right off the bat with Spirit Island, which is actually, I could show the box. I don't have to flip the box lid. It's the right direction. Spirit Island is going to be one of my favorite games, which is going to be a meaningless statement that I should try to stop saying this entire list, because obviously these are my favorite games, and Spirit Island more specifically is my 20th favorite game of all time. Spirit Island is going to bring cooperative something or other to the table with powers and abilities. Spirit Island is the reversal of the typical settler dynamic. Instead of being settlers in trying to settle across an island like a million other games from Puerto Rico to Catan to who knows what else, Spirit Island is going to have you playing as the spirits of the island, as invaders come in and try to take over, and you are helping the Dahan, the natives of the island, fight back and push back against those horrible invading settlers of the island. In Spirit Island, you're going to take on the role of a spirit. Each player takes on the role of a spirit. You can play it solo, you can play it with 2, 3, 4, 5, I think 6 is the limit. It says 1 to 4 in the box, but I know I've seen people saying 5 or 6, maybe it's expansions, who knows. In any case, it's going to be powers and abilities galore as your spirit comes to the table with their own unique feel, their own unique board that ramps up, their tableau that's going to spread as you put your influence down on the island, as you add to your deck, as you draw more cards. You're going to continuously be building up a deck that helps respond to the current settler situation on the board, as well as playing off of your spirit's powers, playing off other spirits' powers. It is all about that construction and that management and knowing how to execute this card followed by that card so that you push to Dahan, you fight back against the settlers, you do this, you do that, you wipe them all out, and the whole time you feel like the settlers are going to crush you, like they're going to take over, especially as you ramp up the difficulty of that game. But if you hold out long enough, you'll notice that they didn't take over. They merely inflicted blight on the island, and you can push back, you can defend, and as the game progresses, eventually, probably, maybe, you might actually win the game, in which case that'll be fun. It has multiple levels of difficulty, so you can scale and ramp up this game as you need, and it is a solid experience. This is the game that has introduced me to solo games. Spirit Island is the game that really, not introduced me, but pulled me in. I had played solo before, but after playing Spirit Island with my wife, and I wanted to play it again, I was like, you know what, I'll try it solo. I really enjoyed that puzzle. And it pulled me into the world of solo gaming when other games in the past never really had. And that's going to be our number 20. And from there, it's going to take us to our number 19. And I'm realizing there's a very big oversight on this whole series where I don't have a song. I don't have a song for my top 20 that I should have a song. I don't know, like Alex Radcliffe's top 100 games of all time. No, let's do something else. Alex Radcliffe doesn't keep any games, but these he does. That might mean something, or maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I need a song. We'll figure this out some other time, not middle of a video. The Castles of Burgundy is going to be my number 19. Now, this is my wife's favorite game of all time. There you go. I spoiled the ending of that other video in case you hadn't watched it yet. But nonetheless, Castles of Burgundy is my wife's favorite game of all time. For me, it's my number 19. I like it a lot. It could even just be the age that has it pushed down. I have been playing this game since the very first days of my collection. There are 3 games that are left in my collection from when I first started. There's going to be Castles of Burgundy, 7 Wonders, and Pandemic are the only 3 games left from my original purchase of games when I first got into this hobby. And Castles of Burgundy, that age does mean that as much as I think it's incredible, as much as I think it's amazing, some of that shine, that luster, that newness has worn off, which might be why it's down by number 19 compared to all the new shiny that I really like. That being said, the fact that it's my number 19 after, 8 years now, something like that, is a testament unto itself. Castles of Burgundy, designed by Stefan Feld, is going to be, to me, one of the ultimate tableau building games as you build up your city on the board. You roll dice, you assign them to different actions, and it's one of those games where the dice aren't inherently better or worse if they are higher or lower. Rather, it is how you utilize those dice. It's how you set up your tableau so that at any given moment, you can try to make use of most dice. It's not, contrary to the way most people tend to play this game, it's not about getting the best thing with the dice. It's about finding that combination of getting the best thing versus ensuring that you're leaving yourself options if or when you inevitably roll poorly. Getting 2 3s in a row again and again and again when there's nothing you can do with 3s well, a common thing that will happen to you in this game just because, you know, life, the universe, and everything, and 2020, although I guess it's 2021 now. But in any case, Castles of Burgundy is about managing your choices, giving yourself options when you otherwise don't think you will, and throughout all that, finding the combination of various buildings and things that will play off one another, that will escalate, grabbing those science tiles, adding them to your city or whatnot that you're building out to try to give you those unique competitive advantages in this game. I've been playing this game for, like I said, now 8 years, and it does not get old. It is my favorite. I think it's my favorite Stefan Feld. No, I think there is one more Stefan Feld game that is higher up on this list. Not in this list today, mind you, but in my top 10. I'll have to double check it, but I think there's one more, and if not, it's a drastic oversight, which means maybe we'll just have 11 in my next video. Who knows? We'll find out. Castles of Burgundy, nope, not gonna do it. And number 18, moving down to number 18. Is going to be Rum and Bones, 2nd edition specifically. And this one, I have to rotate because I don't keep boxes on properly. Rum and Bones is going to be by, come on, Cool Mini or not, and it is one of my... It's a great skirmish game. I can't say one of my favorite. I'm just not allowed to. So Rum and Bones is going to be a great skirmish game by Command. This is a game where you're going to pick out 3 pirates. You could play it you could play it with teams, 2-player head-to-head. Generally, well, I shouldn't say generally. I have not yet played it with teams. I have only played this one one-on-one, and so far it has been an incredibly enjoyable, albeit hard to get to the table game. This is one that I can see slowly going up the list, and going up the list is a bad thing, by the way. Going up in numbers, which means down in popularity, as I just don't get to the table often enough. I think I've played this, let's say, twice in the past year, which is not great for my 18th favorite game of all time. I technically said it, but I use the number, so it's okay there. But Rum and Bones is going to be a 2-player skirmish game that, again, 2 or 4, that you are basically drafting a team of pirates. You're going to take pirates from either a specific faction or from mercenaries, combine them, and then utilize those pirates to go at each other in what is basically a MOBA style game. You're going to have these minions, these little pirate crew, running across the board in pre-scripted paths, trying to take out your enemy's various ship features or whatnot, trying to take out their masts, their cannons, their who knows what, and you have to sit there and manage them. You have to sit there and keep them in place. You have to destroy them, kill them, which will earn you money, which you'll use to spend on abilities, which you'll use to level up your heroes, and along the way you will also be attacking other people's heroes. Now for me, I have noticed that for myself, I don't like skirmish games for the most part. The exception historically for me has been when that skirmish game introduces an element of something else, when you're not simply fighting your heroes against one another, but rather you're fighting other things, such as minions, such as objectives, because I find those give more of a construct to the game other than just, I hit you, you hit me, I hit you, you hit me, look, I played my card slightly more efficiently and therefore I win, which is great and has strategy, but just isn't for me personally. Rum and Bones very much does give you different things to do on that ship, and the abilities of all these pirates. And my problem, by the way, my problem with this game, and this really is a general problem, I should do a full video on this, is I just have too much content for this game. I have everything that has ever been created for it. I think I'm missing like the iron... I'm missing the expansion to the Iron Inquisition, the extra 5 characters. I think that's all I'm missing. Other than that, I have everything else for Rum and Bones Second Tide, which means I have multiple boxes full of stuff, which means this is never a game that I travel with. It's only a game that ever goes to my table, and even then I generally have to pull out like 3 or 4 boxes to actually get it set up. So it is hard to get to the table. That being said, the playtime isn't actually that bad. It comes in at roughly, I would say, 90 to 120 minutes, which is not bad, all things considered. It's good for the right opportunity, the right time when you have 2 players who want to go at each other with powers. The vast variety of characters, if you have as much stuff as I have, is going to be both a pro and a con. Harder to get to the table, but also so many different things. I mean, the idea of ever running out of combinations in this game, from the like 8 different factions I have, to the and factions come with their own unique ability deck and all the differences as well as different ships or whatnot. There's just so much content for this game. I absolutely adore Rum and Bones by Cool Mini or Not, designed by Michael Chanel, and solid experience. Number 17. Let's rearrange these boxes. Number 17 is going to be, there we go, Parks. Parks is oh so delightful. This is such a good game. Let's see. Oh, I'm gonna have to flip that. And things are falling apart in here. This is the problem. After I do these lists, I have to organize up the insides of these boxes, because normally when I put them on the shelf, I know which boxes have to lay flat, and that's fine, and I know which boxes go on their side. But when I do these videos, all the flat ones suddenly find themselves on the side, and it's a cleanup time after. That being said, I could edit instead, but this is just as much work, or less work actually. Parks. Parks is a game by Keymaster Games, I believe. I want to say Keymaster Games. And it is a game that is so delightful. This is I think it's new to me in 2020. I'm pretty sure. I have to double check when I first played it. It might be late 2019, but I'm fairly certain it's 2020. Parks is going to be a game that is deceptively appealing, deceptively simple. It's deceptively cute, and you're hiking along a path, and you move your hiker, and you take an ability, and you move your hiker, you take an ability, you get to the end, you visit a hiking location, rinse and repeat until you get to the end. Whoever has the most points wins. and yet it is so twistedly strategic. The game involves getting in each other's ways so often. It's incredible how this game manages to pack getting in each other's ways in such a short and accessible game. You move up, you sit there in a spot, you move your other hiker, you lock the spot off, people have to flip their campfires to get past you. There's so much fun in the way you actually both achieve your own objectives and get in the way of other people, but not purely maliciously, meaning I am not a fan of the concept of, let's say, Ticket to Ride, where you just place a train down just to block someone. Generally in this game, it is a very healthy combination of getting your own abilities, getting your own goals out of the way, while also getting in the other way of other players, but not doing so at a cost to yourself. It is so much fun to manage that puzzle, to manage which pictures you're going to taking which camera you're going to steal, which locations you're going to visit, which of the gear you're going to acquire to build up your own options in Tableau. Parks gives you so many options in a relatively short playtime, 45 to 60 minutes, depending on the player count. It plays very well with 3 and 4. I have not played it with 2, so I can't comment on that yet. But overall, a delightful game. I believe it plays 1 to 5, by the way. I've only played it with 3 and 4. It's a delightful game that is a really solid experience, both whimsically appealing or whatnot, as well as, dark, twisted strategy. I don't know if I'm using the word twisted, but as well as an excessive amount of strategy, in case that's your thing too. Let's move it over there. And from there, that's going to bring us to our number 17, 20, 19, 18, wait, 20, 19, 18, 16, 17, 16. I just can't count. Number 16 is going to be Machina Arcana, which is very much a new to me in 2020 game. Machina Arcana was not on my radar at all until the Kickstarter was coming, so I got a copy and reviewed it a bunch, and I'm getting the new Kickstarter because Machina Arcana is delightful. This game, well, delightful is probably the wrong word. It's twisted running from monsters. This one actually twisted does apply. It's twisted running from monsters the whole time while you try to desperately survive, occasionally fighting back when you think you can possibly afford to, but most of the time really just running from monsters because that's what you need to do in Machina Arcana. And Machina Arcana is about that strategy. It's a game that I am happy to play solo. I'm happy to play with 2 players. I'm willing to play with 3 players, but it will start to drag on in length of time at that point. Machina Arcana is, first of all, the theme and art is amazing. This is one of the few times I've actually gotten the art book for the game from the Kickstarter, because over time I've realized I don't actually use art books. Now that may still be true for Machina Arcana, to be very clear. I may well get it, look at it initially, and then never touch it again. But the art was beautiful enough that I decided I'll risk it or whatnot, because it is such a dark setting. It is so beautifully dark in what it does. The art is amazing. This is stuff that I would happily hang on my walls, although I'd have to probably be pretty selective about which pieces I would hang on my walls. Maybe just have a bathroom dedicated to tentacles and dark twisted art. I don't know. That actually sounds like not the worst idea. All the tentacles in the back. Either way. So Machina Arcana is going to be a game. It's a dungeon crawler to an extent. I know the designer doesn't call it a dungeon crawler. I would say my own experience of it is very similar to a dungeon crawler. It has a side-scrolling element. As you adventure through the dungeon, tiles drop off and new tiles enter the board, which is both a management technique of avoiding monsters properly and correctly, as well as keeping your table space contained in a decent-sized space, meaning Machina Arcana will never turn into a completely overwhelming table hog because of that aspect of the game. Now, it's still not a small game, but it also doesn't broach the, I don't know, it doesn't get as worse as it possibly could. And in the game itself, you're constantly trying to manage upgrading your character with the steampunk setting and the gear and equipment so you can constantly survive increasing waves of monsters that are stronger and stronger. And of course, eventually, as you get to the end of the game, being able to actually tackle the end and win the game itself. Along the way, you're going to be constantly running. The management, the stamina management in this game is so key and so important. You often barely have the moments to breathe that you need to open that chest, get the equipment before a monster is staring down your back trying to kill you. It is all about the tactical management of those monsters. It's all about knowing when to engage, when to fight back, when to, set off a trap in the dungeon, when to explode a barrel. There's so much management in this game, and it's so management in a good way, not management in a tedious way. There's so much strategic management in this game that is hard to manage as you sit there and try to figure out the best way to actually survive this horrific dungeon crawling experience. Machina Arcana is delightful in a dark and twisted kind of way. Which brings us to my number 15, which is going to be the very opposite of delightfully dark and twisted, which is going to be Everdell. Everdell is a game that I've talked about in multiple videos. I can't show you the box on this because it's just the same on the other side, unless I take off the box sleeve, which I'm not going to do mid-video because getting that thing back on is annoying. I don't know why I keep box sleeves. Everdell, I don't actually know who's designed by offhand. I don't remember their names, unfortunately. James Wilson, maybe? Maybe, I don't know. Put out by Starling Games, and Everdell is a delightful and whimsical worker placement slash hand management slash tableau building game that takes place in a woodland setting with adorable little creatures. Think the building side of Redwall. Think if Redwall has, you know, their combat side, which is going to be Root, and then their management side of their homes and resources and population, which will be Everdell. Combine those two, and you basically have Everdell the board game, you know, split into two parts. And Everdell is so solid in the implementation of the strategy it provides. It is a game that I got rid of at one point because I enjoyed it, but I didn't feel the need to go back for a second game. I played the first game, I was like, that's pretty good, kept it for a few months, didn't hit the table, and moved on from it. And then I had regrets, which happens occasionally. Not often, but it happens occasionally, that I sit there and I'm like, you know what, I really want to give that game another shot. And I got Everdell back, and I gave it another shot, and another shot, and another shot. Everdell is so much fun to put out your creatures and to efficiently manage the puzzle that is being presented. That first game, the reason it threw me off is because in Everdell, you start off the game by feeling incredibly constricted, by feeling like there is no way you will ever be able to get done the amount of things you will need to get done. That they give you a card limitation of you only can have 15 cards in your tableau. And you finish off that first round, you're like, 15? I'll be lucky if I get 5 cards in my tableau. But then as the game progresses across the 4 seasons, you start to realize it is an escalating sense of just how much you can get done every single round. As your cards build up, as you add additional meeples, workers, or whatnot to your pool, you start to be able to get done more and more until you get to the final round. You're like, 15? I need 18 spots. How am I going to get as many points as I possibly can with only 15 spots? What am I going to do to manage that puzzle? Everdell lets you sit there and struggle and challenge with the aspect of getting in an economy early versus getting in the points endgame and trying to efficiently manage it, and perhaps through abilities and whatnot, getting rid of other cards. I have not yet had the opportunity to put, no, opportunity is the wrong word. I have yet not chosen to play with any of the expansions because the base game has been plenty, and I keep introducing it to new people, which means I keep introducing them to the base game, but I really do need to get Pearlbrook to the table as well as the others. I have all the expansions. I will happily buy anything they put out because, well, it's adorable and it's Everdell, and it is my number 15 game of all time, which means I'll get everything they put out for that game. Which brings me to my number 14, which is going to be Brass. If you combine the dark, twisted artwork of Machina Arcana and the economy and strategy of Everdell, you will get Brass. I just made that up, but it sounds good, right? I mean, look at the art of this one. It has a very dark motif that is beautifully haunting as you play this game, and yet is not a dungeon crawler. It is not a worker placement either. It is a heavy economic, I'm going to say economic. It's a heavy tableau building Euro game that is reprinted. This is by Martin Wallace, one of my favorite designers in terms of putting out heavy, crunchy, meaty games that I find both accessible and yet incredibly heavy. Meaning you're not going all the way off to the Vital Lacerda or the Splotter deep end. You're taking it back one notch, and you have games that are slightly more accessible in what they're doing, and you're providing you such a rich amount of depth and strategy in your game. Brass is haunting. I've heard so many good things about this. Is going to be the Lancashire version. I've heard so many good things about the Birmingham version, which I believe is more highly rated than the Lancashire version, which means I really have to get that one to the table, and I haven't, because as it is, I don't play Brass Birmingham, Brass Lancashire enough, and I need to play this one more. It is so crunchy in what it's doing. It gives you 10 rounds, more than 10 rounds. I don't remember the number of rounds. It's split up into 2 different phases, of which you'll slowly be building out the board, putting iron on the board, putting iron and the other one, tin, what is it called? I can't remember what it's called. But the 2 main resources of the game are going to go on the board as you utilize them in order to build out the other things. So you're constantly utilizing resources from yourself, from other players, and earning yourself points along the way. From there, you're building up factories and building up shipyards and doing all these things in order to get you more points, more economy, building up connections from different locations that are going to score you throughout the game, taking on debt as needed in order to hopefully min-max your way towards a better system, a better economy. Brass gives you so much depth, so much choice, and a roughly 2 to 3 hour playtime depending on who you're playing with or whatnot, or how AP your group is. My group tends to be fairly thinky about these style of games, so I would say Brass typically comes in at the 2.5 hour range for us. It is a solid game, one of my favorites. Specifically, I can't believe I did it again, specifically my 14th, I think, 13, 12, 11, 14th highest game of all time. Which brings us to my number 13, which is going to be Too Many Bones Undertow. And as usual, whenever I include Too Many Bones in a list, I simply have this empty box for Undertow, because there's no way that I am dragging my trove chest onto the table to manage when I can barely manage these games as it stands. And the trove chest is because I have everything for Too Many Bones. Not that I play with everything. I play with a bunch of the content, but there is so much content for this game, and unless you're really deep diving into it a lot, you definitely don't need more than, I would recommend, honestly, Undertow, plus like a character expansion or 2 to mix up the characters you have, and then you're probably good for quite some time. Or you're like me, and once you like a game, you kind of get everything, even though you don't really need to. Too Many Bones is going to be such a rewarding experience. It is so much fun to build out your characters, to learn your characters. I genuinely find the characters in Too Many Bones, learning a new character is often as complicated as learning an entire new game. Obviously game dependent. It's not like learning a Vital Lacerda game, but it is like learning an entire Roland, right? The characters have a depth and a narrative, a style that is completely different. It's not simply like, oh, this character has +2 attack, this character rolls an extra die in defense. It's nothing like that. Characters have their own unique feeling of how they play the game. They're going to have their own a card or a neoprene mat that you're going to build out as you unlock dice and unlock their special abilities. And again, it's not just purely stats. It is completely different feelings from characters with, like, let's use Undertow as an example. They have 2 characters in that game. One is going to have their dog, their pet, that is their wolf, not dog, their wolf, that is their pet that moves around the board and has their own activation style around that while being a bit of an assassin character herself. And then the other character is playing music to basically attack enemies and boost allies. That is completely different than any of the other characters from the other expansions or base game and whatnot, from people who throw bombs, mechs, who knows what. The game gives you drastically different character experiences that completely mix up how you play the game. As far as the core game itself, ultimately it's going to be chips. You're going to have chips because it's chip theory games, and you're going to be going through little adventures one at a time until you eventually get to the boss, the final encounter. And along the way, you're getting rewards, leveling up your character, because leveling up your character is so important. Having more dice, having better dice, being able to roll more attack dice, being able to get certain ability dice where you can do your poison dagger or whatever. All these things will build up the experience you have and will give you different experiences every single time. I played Too Many Bones Undertow a good 5-6 times with the exact same characters, with the exact same boss, and it felt drastically different every single time because I chose different paths of how I want to upgrade my characters, because I encountered different missions along the way. That might be another good expansion to get, the one that gives you additional missions or bosses just to make it feel more different as you play. There's so much content for this game, and I'm fine with that because eventually, over time, I will hopefully maybe play it all. I don't really know. I hope so, because I love Too Many Bones. It is a tactical decision of how to sit there and go through combat. You're not going to be running away the way you do in Machina Arcana, but you are going to be tactically positioning yourself on this 4x4 grid of how to sit there and min-max your way so that I can move back a step, ensuring that when that creature attacks, it'll attack my other ally who will actually be able to attack back, and this will happen and that will happen. It's managing all of that. It's managing each combat sequence in a way that hopefully results in you getting out alive and surviving until the next round, because generally I find in most games surviving until the next round is usually a good thing. Which brings us to my number 12, which is going to be Rurik, Dawn of Kiev. Now, Rurik, Dawn of Kiev at one point was in, I can't put it there, you can't even see it. Rurik, Dawn of Kiev was at one point in my top 10 games of all time. And the expansion to a degree has potentially changed that. It may well go back up to my top 10 as I play it more with the expansion. The problem is I tend to not love playing with prototypes, and all I do is I have the prototype for the expansion and I'm waiting for the actual expansion to hit my table. So when I've gotten Rurik to the table, since then, I still play it just base game alone, which for me, again, number 12 is not a problem at all, but also it has shifted out of my top 10. Rurik, Dawn of Kiev is going to be an area control game with action programming. You're going to start each round. It takes 4 rounds for the game, and in each round, let's see if we can show you a box over here. In each round, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be starting each round by programming out your actions, by putting out your advisors on a board that will decide, are you recruiting troops, are you moving, are you attacking, are you building, are you taxing? All of these things are important to your economy in Rurik, to managing the way you will ultimately win this game. Because in Rurik, what you're going to do is once you finish out programming out those actions, you're going to move to the next round of the game, which you have to carry out those actions, but now you're carrying them out in a different sequence, because as you put the advisors on the board, other advisors are going to go down, pushing you out of place. So you will be taking different actions at different times than you originally thought or planned or intended, which means you have to be fluid in what you'll be able to do, understanding the realm to which other people will mess with you, while also being able to ultimately do a certain amount of predictability. You plan all that, you take out all your actions in the second phase of the game, and you sit there and you figure out how to min-max yourself, how to take those actions, how to build out your economy, how to get a few extra points. This is a game where the end game score is going to be somewhere in the range of, let's say, 30 points. It's not a lot, which means every additional point you get along the way is incredibly key, and you will fight for those additional points. Rurik is a solid game, coming in at roughly 90 minutes to 2 hours for us. We played it primarily we played only 3 and 4 players. There is a solo mode, and you could play 2 players. I have not played those, so I cannot comment on that. But overall, Rurik is a delightfully challenging game as you place out your pieces to try to figure out which options are going to be encountered, which options you will be able to take once you get to that action round. If you've ever played Robo Rally, Quad Heroes, Mechs and Minions, any game with action programming, and you thought, wow, this is fun, but I wish there was just a a meteor system behind that, Rurik to me is, at least for me personally, is probably the meatiest game that involves action programming in advance. It tries to give you that experience and provides you with area control and tactical planning along the way. Which brings us to my number 11. Which is my 11th favorite game of all time, which is going to be Through the Ages, A New Story of Civilization. This is such a good game that at one point I got rid of, and I never got rid of it because it was a bad game. That was never my issue. I got rid of it because, well, the last time I played it before I got rid of it, and I got rid of it years ago, by the way, but I had played a game that lasted for 6 hours until 4 in the morning, and I was like, this is an incredible game. I love this game. I'm going to get rid of it because I don't want to be up at 4 in the morning playing board games. I mean, I do, but there's a cost on the other side. I have kids who like to wake me up at 7 o'clock in the morning. But Through the Ages is such a great game, but it just was way too long. But in the end, I decided to get it back, and I decided to simply swear off ever playing this game with 4 players again. And since I've gotten it back, I've played it with 2, I've played it with 4, I've played it on the, I played it with 2, I've played it with 3, I have played it on the app, but only with other players. There's an amazing app for this game. I highly recommend the app. I think it's a great implementation of the game, but I still prefer it in person. As good as the app is, I don't like playing with random people on the internet quite as much as I like playing it with my friend group who I know what's happening. I know the styles and the meta and the way we interact with each other, and I appreciate that much more. And then the problem with playing it with my friends on the app is that there tends to be a lot more of a gap. Like, I'll be punching my turn, whatever it is, and then an hour and a half later someone else takes their turn and I have to like re-involve myself in the game. So the accessibility of it, the lack of management is good, but the trade-off is you don't get the feeling of sitting down for 3 hours building up, creating your civilization, cheering down your opponents and figuring out the way to win this game, figuring out the card combinations that are ultimately going to deliver you the win. And in person, this game is so much fun. For those who don't know, I have barely talked about this game. Through the Ages, designed by Vlad Shvatil, put out by CGE, who I'm realizing CGE is getting a lot of love in my top 50. But put out this game, Through the Ages, is going to be an abstracted civilization building game. I say abstracted only in the sense that you are not having a physical map where you're going to have combat. There's no 4X in that sense. Rather, you will be building out your card rows, getting technologies that will improve your military, improve your economy, improve your points, improve everything. Because every single card in that row represents something good. There's wonders, there's powers, there's abilities, there's leaders, there's technologies, there's so many different things that will reward you in the game. But the problem is you have a limited number of actions you can take every turn. You can use it to buy cards. You can use it to buy more expensive cards because the card row gets cheaper as it goes along. You can use it to take your actions. You can use it to build up a better government. There's so many different ways you can build out and improve your engine. Maybe you build more mines, build more farms, build more population. Everything you do is helpful. So figuring out which things are the most helpful, which things will cascade off one another, which wonders will help your particular engine, how to deal with your opponent who's starting to aggressively increase their military might, while your opponent to the left is starting to increase your culture, and you feel trapped because you either have to catch them in points or you have to build up your military. Either way, you're going to be in trouble. What do you do? How do you react? What is the engine you are going to build up in Through the Ages that is going to ultimately improve your game and give you a better endgame score? You do that for 3 hours. Events, battles, conflict, all these things along the way. It is so much fun. It's a drop of antagonism, a drop of pushing people and attacking them, which can be frustrating if you don't know what to do, which generally I recommend the learning game for people with a little less conflict. You don't go into the full third age with whatever wars or whatnot. I do feel it gives you a good experience for the game without punishing people overly with conflict. Or, of course, if you're playing it someone new, just make sure that you yourself go more victory point based than conflict based, because losing in Through the Ages is actually not really as much of a problem in my opinion, versus having your various buildings and everything smacked down by your opponents. That can certainly taint someone's experience of the game. That's going to be my 20 through 11 in terms of this list. A lot of incredible games, because, I mean, these are my second to last batch of favorite games of all time, which means next week, probably whenever, I don't know exactly what day it's going up because Kickstarter's starting to act up again, which means things are getting busy again. But at some point in the next week, we will have my number 10 through 1, 10 more incredible games that hopefully I will not look at and say, wow, I really like Through the Ages more than that one. I'm telling you, putting together these lists, there is so much angst involved as I sit there and rank one thing above another, and I'm like, but I like both of those games. How can I say this one's better than that one? It's hard, but you know, the challenges we face, first world problems and all that. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Let me know which of these games is your favorite, and which one of these games would you totally 100% not play again because there's a horrific experience. Honestly, if I had to guess, I would say Spirit Island would probably get that. As much as people love this game, or maybe Rurik too. There's some games that have a degree of challenge that just make them trickier and make them not the right fit for someone else. All that being said, until next time, have a good one.